Hello everyone, I hope you're all having an amazing day. So today's video series is basically gonna be that I want to start this thing. I don't know if I'll continue depending on how good it goes, but in this vlog-ish video, I'm going to read 3 short story collections. So what happened is that by some miraculous way, I have accumulated these short story collections, and short stories collections are not something I read a lot of, but it's something I do want to read more of. And so to be able to get through these, I thought I would do like one every month where I read 2 to 3 short story collections and pretty much talk about every single story in the short story collections depending on how short and how many there are, because I feel like when we review short story collections in videos, it's just always like it was pretty good or I didn't like it in general, but it's hard to go into details, so I wanted to make this very detailed video. So these are some that I'm going to get to in later months, and I feel like there's more, but I don't know where they are now. And in this video, I will be reading these 3. So this one is A Registry of My Passage Upon the Earth by Daniel Mason. Don't know much about this one. Literally just bought it because of the cover. Yes, and then I have this one, Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin. I have read 2 books by the author before, and I think this is her last one she's written. Really excited to get to this. It's translated from Spanish. And then we have this one, Haruki Murakami, after the Quake. So I've made it a goal of mine to read 1 Murakami book every month of this year, so I will get through all of his books this year. I actually started on this one a couple months back, and I've already read the first one, and I'm actually not gonna reread the first one because I remember not like overly loving it, so even though it kind of defeats the purpose of this video, I'm not gonna talk about it. So I'm gonna start with this one because I've already started with it, and it's not gonna be like me making my coffee in this vlog. I literally just sit down with this camera still and talk about every single story in these. So I don't know if it's gonna be fun to watch, but we're just gonna do it, see what happens, and hopefully we'll have a fun time. So I finished the second short story in this one, and it's called Landscape of Flatiron. So you follow Junko, our main character. She's in her early adults or late teens, and she's run away from home, and she lives with this person called Keisuke, and they together one night go together to this bonfire that this guy called Miyuke has created, and every time there's driftwood that comes into the ocean from the earthquakes and stuff, all these stories are connected to the earthquake that happened in Japan. This character collects all this driftwood and makes a fire, and Junko goes and basically to these, I don't know, fires that this guy makes every single time, and they chat, and the book kind of just talks a bit about their life. They have a chat together. I felt like the characters were very distinct, and I got to know them in very few pages, like very quickly. I felt like there was definitely themes and things that were explored very quickly, and I really got like a good essence of the story. I think I'm gonna give it like 3.75 stars. Like, I think it was good and I enjoyed it. I don't have like a lot of thoughts about it. Of course, there's some really funny Murakami quotes. The first one is that I highlighted is, "I can't sleep at night when there's a refrigerator around." It talks a lot about life and death and living life because of the death, and like the discussions around that. Another quote that I really liked was, "Some things your brain can't help you with." And then there was one about premonitions. "Premonitions can stand for something else sometimes, and the thing they stand for can be a lot more intense than reality. That's the scariest thing about premonition." And then the last quote of the short story that kind of wraps it up is, "When the fire goes out, you'll start feeling the cold. You wake up whether you want to or not." So I'll just keep reading. Okay, I finished the third short story in this one. It's called All God's Children Can Dance, which is a beautiful title by the way. So this follows Yushiya, who wakes up one morning super drunk, and he is on his way to work when he gets sidetracked by this man that he thinks is his father, because he's been told that his father is missing an earlobe, and he sees a man with a missing earlobe and he goes after him. But in between this plot, he basically goes to the backstory where he talks about his past and his mother a lot, and his story why he doesn't know his father. And it's just like there's parts that made me really uncomfortable. Like, he's in love with his mother, and I'm not talking like you love your mama. I'm talking about like intimate feelings, love, sexual feeling, love, and it's just like a really uncomfortable topic, I think, and it's also just kind of like unnecessary. And when he says like, oh yeah, his mother has a good figure because she eats right and she trains, and it's just like, okay, if you say just like this person has a good figure, then like, or a good shape, round is a nice shape, you know, like it doesn't specify anything. But then like these things, like they're not outright sexist, but they're just sort of like non-important to have in there. It just kind of bothered me. And then his mom, there's this part where he says that his mom knows that he is a child of God because God gave her a son and he has a big dick. And it's just like, it's sort of ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but then he comments on the fact that how ridiculous that is, but still, like, I don't know. It's just a bit weird, and I like the ending, and there's a quote that I really like from this one, but generally it was just a little bit, didn't click with me. Usually stuff about religion doesn't click with me. It says, as he let himself go and moved his body in time to the music, he would come to feel that the natural rhythm inside him was pulsing in perfect unison with the basic rhythm of the world. Which I can relate to, and I like that a lot. Let's talk about the other three tomorrow. Oh, I'm giving it 2 stars, by the way. So the 4th story I read in this is called Thailand. It's, I think, 21 pages long, and you're following your main character, Satsuki, who is going on a vacation to Thailand. She's a doctor, she's going through menopause. Somehow that's important, and she basically just takes a vacation for a week to chill, do nothing, and figure out some stuff in her life about how she didn't have any children, her feelings to her husband, the resentment, and of course like her wishes that he would have died in the Kobe earthquakes, and wishing for like that to happen to him, and her working through those feelings. So it definitely has Murakami vibes, and I think sometimes I don't know, everyone tells me like his writing is sexist, so every time I'm reading his book, even though he's like my favorite author, I feel like in the back of my mind I'm like dissecting, is this sexist, is it sexist, you know? And I don't think it is. I think this is the reality for many women, and I think he writes it fairly well, and I think sometimes it can be seen as like sexist because, but also his men is very always the same character, very much him, kind of stereotypical, so I don't know, it kind of goes both ways in a way. But I don't know, I liked it. I think I'm gonna give it like 3.5, 3.75 stars. I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I got so much of it, and I don't know if I felt so much in it. But like all his short stories are very well constructed, like the theme comes across perfectly, we understand the characters very well, and it's done in such a show don't tell way. So like all of these are very good, and I don't know, I haven't read a lot of short story collections obviously, so I don't have a ton of stuff to compare it to. But yeah, let's move on to the 5th one. Okay, so I just finished Super Frog Saves Tokyo, which is a lovely title, by the way. I love that. The first line is, Katagiri found a giant frog waiting for him in his apartment. And I don't really want to tell you more than that because the story goes off. He meets this frog at his apartment. The frog is huge and talking, makes some tea. They discuss, and the story just spirals and becomes super surreal, and things just really escalate. The ending gave me the creeps a bit. There's this moment, and if you're ready, you know what I'm talking about. But this one is so far probably my favorite. I just like things that are like that when it's weird and surreal and funny but dark, and I don't know, I like that one quite a bit, and I'm gonna give it 4.25 stars. Really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna read the last short story in the short story collection before I go to bed. So I finished the last story in After the Quake. It's called Honey Pie. It's a bit longer than the other ones, and it's divided into 2 parts. But essentially, it's a super, super sweet story. It's so like kind and warm and lovely. So it starts off with this 4-year-old girl being told a story about a bear. And the bear is Honey, and it kind of goes on to weave the story with the bear together with the backstory of the characters who's telling the story to the girl and how they all connect together. That's annoying. And it was just very beautiful and kind and soft, and I think that like the way that the stories were structured together were very clever. Like they didn't connect at all, but they just flowed very nicely, and it was like a good variety. And I also liked how they were all like vaguely connected to the earthquakes, the same event, and how like different people can relate to it and experience it in conscious and subconscious level. I thought
that was really interesting, and I liked this short story collection. I also like that the book is very thin and that it isn't like more. I don't know. I think this was like enough. It was a good amount. And I like the variety of them. Did I have any good quotes in this one? I don't know if it's because I'm really, really tired, but I found this quite beautiful. To understand something and to put that something into a form you can see with your own eyes are two completely different things. If you could manage to do both equally well, though, living would be a lot simpler. And then on the last page, we have this quote. I want to write about people who dream and wait for the night to end, who long for the light so they can hold the ones they love. Which is a bit cheesy for Murakami, but I liked it. Maybe it's because I'm tired, but I liked it. So I'll see you guys tomorrow with more short stories.
So right now I'm reading A Registry of My Passage Upon the Earth by Daniel Mason. I read the first one. It's called... Oh yeah, this book has like some sort of illustrations in them too. The first one's called Death of the Pugilist, or The Famous Battle of Jacob Burke and Blindman McCraw. So basically it's a boxing fight or fight ring fight or something between Burke and this other guy. So you kind of follow Burke from his childhood up until that fight, which is like a life-changing moment or something. He has some sort of revelation, and it's written sort of like, wait, let me see. It's written sort of like, hope you can see. Every like chapter of his life, there's like a little statement that explains what it's gonna be, and every statement has like a number, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. And I didn't get it. I'm gonna give the first short story 1 star. I don't like reading about boxers. I don't like reading about fighting because I guess even if you like it, like I just find it meaningless and I don't like it. You know, like I don't like reading about it. I'm not interested about it. I think the only thing I'm probably less interested in is like cowboys. No, just kidding. Fighting, boxing is so much worth. Like I just can't sympathize with people who do it and just can't understand it, and I just like don't want to read about it. And I didn't get the story. It doesn't have any point. It didn't give me anything. I think there's nothing, it's not badly written, it's just really not for me, and so I have decided to temporarily DNF this one. So basically, because it's short stories, like this doesn't really matter, you know, like I can pick this up next month, I can do it in the next short story log if I want to do that. So I'm just gonna leave the bookmark in, I'm gonna put the dust jacket on again, and I'll return to it. I'm not like permanently DNFing it because short stories can all be different, you know, and there's some other ones that I'm really interested in the premise of, so I'm gonna get back to it at some point, don't worry, but I'm just gonna talk about the other ones in some other video. And I will start this one, The Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin, as well. So I did this thing, maybe it's dumb, it's a bit off topic for this video, but I have decided to read 30% translated works for 2021. That entails that every month I need to read an average of 30% translated works, like obviously, you know, and basically all the books I need to read for the next 3 days or 4 days of the month need to be translated. So the fact that this is not translated, it also stresses me out a bit, and I'll just read it at some other point. I know it doesn't matter, and like it kind of defeats the point of that percentage, but I still want to keep it up, you know. And honestly, the first one didn't interest me, so I'm just gonna skip it. I hope no one's offended by that. But yeah, I'll pick up this one instead. I think these are shorter short stories, so I will try to be more brief on each one so I can talk about every single one. Yeah, I'm just not really feel like reading right now. Okay, so should we have a larger discussion about short stories in general? So I read the first one and this one. It's called Headlights. It's only like 13 pages or something, so this is much more up my alley. It's a bit much more surreal and fits much better together with After the Quake in like a reading vlog. Headlights is basically about this woman Felicity who her husband leaves her on the side of the road, and this other woman starts talking to her, and it turns out sort of that many women have been left here and they're all there cursing their husbands. And it was amazing. It's like 4.5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. I loved the ending, and I think a good short story, at least one that I like. Oh, the camera's all twisted. It's like really slanted. Oh boy. Short stories that I really like is when you start off not really knowing what's happening. you don't know anything about the short stories, right? Because they can't say anything on the back, which kind of defeats the purpose of this video. But you don't know anything what it's about. You just have to figure out what goes on, and it takes like pretty much half the short story to understand. And when you finally understand, you're like, wait, what's going on? What is this about? And then at the end, it's supposed to twist your perspective. You're supposed to see the previous story, kind of like a plot twist, but not as huge. More like you understand a bit what it's about, but you don't get the answers. If that sort of makes sense, like that's what I like at least, and I think that's what this one did really well. It was about like women's solidarity and standing up for your own gender in a way. Sounds a bit vague, but so far so good. I'm excited to jump into the other ones, but I'm gonna eat now. So I just finished reading one called Preserves, the second one, and what the fuck? It was so weird, and I didn't even know what I read. It was so weird. Like, the basic story, very short, very brief, not explaining anything at all, basically, is that our main character woman is pregnant, but she's depressed, and so she and her husband seeks this treatment. But like in the ending, what the hell? What the hell was that? I don't know, but I loved it. I loved it. Let's keep reading. Okay, so the fourth story is only like 4 pages long. It's super short. It's called Butterfly. So you're following this man who's just standing outside waiting for his daughter to be let out of school. I can't tell you any more of that because it's so short. But, oh man, was it dark. Like, these are the type of stories I was, like, setting myself up for when I want to read short stories. Like, this is what I wanted to read. And I love them. This one was also so good. It hurt me a bit emotionally, but it was really good. Both of the last two are 5 stars. And I'll keep reading. When I'm this close to the camera, the screen I'm looking at is super small, but if you look at it, like, if you're looking at this with, like, your TV, my face is like the whole screen. It's just weird to think about. I just wanted to take a second to talk about the last one, the one Butterfly, because I think that what it was about, I was just trying to clarify my thoughts. I think it was about seeing something the way we perceive it versus as something is. At least that's my interpretation of it. Like the beauty of the thing itself rather than what we project onto it. Maybe that's my really deep meaning of something that's like literally just 4 pages long and doesn't explain anything. Like, none of these stories explains anything. It's just action. Like, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then sort of you get like to take what you will from it. Ooh, exciting. The next one is called The Name of the Book. Let's read it. So I finished reading A Mouthful of Birds, and I just feel like a bit empty. Like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be feeling, which I think is like the whole purpose of this one. Wow, these are really taking me on a journey. It follows this father who has a daughter that eats small birds alive. Yes. Ooh, I got chills. Oh, chills, man. There's not that much more to it. The story doesn't progress all that much, but it just made me really uncomfortable. Like, it was just like, ugh, like, I don't know. Oh yeah, I really did get chills. Do still have chills. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that one. Like, it was very well written, and it definitely made me feel stuff. I just didn't like the way it made me feel. Ooh, I really hope the other ones aren't like as nasty or out there. Okay, so I finished another short story. This one's called Irman, and it's about these 2 people who go to a diner, and the guy who works there is kind of distressed. He can't really serve people because it turns out his wife is dead and she does all the cooking. And then the story kind of escalates from there. So this is not like a magical realism or surrealism in any way, but it made me really uncomfortable in a strange sort of way. Like, she writes these stories that, like, I'm not sure I enjoyed reading them, but they definitely make me feel something, and I can feel that there's like a purpose to them and there's like an underlying meaning as to what it is, but like they just generally make me feel really uncomfortable. They center around like what is moral and what is not, and when things conflict, like when people do stuff that's unmoral, and it just like makes you feel a certain way. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah. Okay, this one was called The Test. So what I got from it is that it's about this person who wants to become or is a killer, and they need to prove that they can kill a dog before they can get the mission of killing a human. And it's like, I'm a sensitive person, and many of these stories are like hard to read. They're particularly brutal towards nature and animals. Like there's abuse of like butterflies and birds and dogs and all type of shit, and it's like actually really difficult for me to emotionally read it, and I feel like I need to like compartmentalize certain information that I get and sort of like brutal actions that happen to be able to read it. But it's also like a love letter to nature in many ways, because I don't know, I think maybe it's a bit about like how we separate ourselves from nature, but actually we're part of nature, and it's a little bit about like karma in a way. And so it is like in the favor of animals, but reading them is just making me really uncomfortable and like not happy and sad. Okay, I finished the next one, Toward Happy Civilization. So this is about Grunter. Is it called Grunter? Yeah, he is. Oh, Gruner, who's trying to buy a ticket for a train at a train station, but they don't have any change, so they refuse to sell him the ticket. It just spirals from there. It's like the story starts somewhere and it just continues, and you're like, that was not what I was expecting. I think it's about that you want something because you don't have it. When you get it, it's maybe not what you thought, and what you want isn't maybe what you think you want, but you want something that situation gives you, but you don't actually want the situation, if you know what I mean. Like for example, when I was in my teens, my friends were like partying a lot, and I am not the type of person that parties a lot, but I did it with them because I wanted to be part of, I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to like what everyone else was liking, and I rejected the fact that I didn't like what I was doing, but had a difficult time coming to terms with the fact that I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. It was because I wanted what they felt when they belonged with like in the party or with those people, and if I wasn't with those people when they were partying, then I was alone, So I wanted the companionship, and I wanted to be part of that culture. I just didn't want to be part of the culture, you know what I mean? And I didn't like that situation. So that's just an example, and I think that was what the story was about. At least that's what I got from it. I think I'm pretty much halfway through the book, so I'm gonna take a break now. So I just finished the one called Olingyrus, something like that, and honestly, didn't get it. It flew right over my head. Something about women plucking their own leg hairs or someone else's leg hairs. We got a lot of backstory that I didn't really make sense of, so yeah, we'll just move on. Okay, so the next one was called My Brother Walter. It is quite short, and it's about Brother Walter, and Walter is quite depressed. I've noticed that I've noticed that she does these things where, for example, our main character in this one, we don't know if it's a girl, if it's a boy, whoever it is, non-binary person, we don't know who they are really, but she tells it like the story is actually about the brother Walter, but we see it from the perspective of this person that we don't know who they are, and they have nothing really to do with the story all that much, but they're kind of this like third person who's like close to the person that it's actually about, and so we see it from their perspective, but it's not about them, and it's all about this other person. And she does this like with a lot of stories, which I think it's like a interesting way of writing, but otherwise I didn't have much thought on that one. Then, just because I read the first line in the next one, I'm going to tell you what it is. The next one's called Merman, and the first one is, I'm sitting at the bar in a port, waiting for Daniel, when I see the merman looking at me from the pier. Update you when I read that one. So that first line pretty much said it all, and I'm not going to say any more of that. I really like this one. The endings always really surprise me. Like, even though I know I will be surprised, they still shock me. I'm shocked. in that quiet way, you know, like when you're silently shocked, you're like, is that where it's going? But it's not a big thing. I liked it a lot. Next one! Hi, it's me again. I just read the one called Rage of Pestilence. This one's very quiet, but yet very aggressive. It's about this person who goes into town on the outskirts to give away food for very poor people and the things they discover there. The last line was really good and it really made you think about a lot of different things that obviously I won't go into because of spoilers. But yes, that's the last one for tonight. He's like looking at me so funny. Olaf, buddy. So I just finished one called Heads Against Concrete. And this was the first one in a while in the last couple stories where I was like really engaged and I was really into the story and I was really like absorbing it. Maybe it could have been with my mood too, but this one is about this guy who when he gets really mad at people, he just can't help himself but bash people's heads against the concrete. And then he becomes an artist and all he wants to draw is bashing people's heads against concrete. And he just lands him in trouble. That's what the story's about. I quite liked it. Yeah, I liked it. Alright, I just finished the one called The Size of Things. And I'm gonna go ahead and spoil this one because I think it's a great example of what the other stories feels like. So it's about this boy who he says is locked out of his apartment, and so this couple takes him in and so he works at the toy store with them. And here comes the part where I spoil the ending. You've been warned. It turns out that he ran away from home because his mother had been hitting him, and at the end of the story his mother comes into the toy store, hits him, drags him away, and the owner does nothing. And the story ends. And I wanted to tell you that ending because it's sort of a bit of the feeling that the other ones go. She's trying to illustrate something about these important very harsh topics in a way, but she never redeems them. The endings are never satisfying whatsoever, and it just kind of leaves them open where you're like screaming at the man who owns the toy store, is like screaming at him almost like, come on, do something, you want to do something so bad. And the way she writes the stories is that she invites you to want to take action by letting the main characters not take action. And I think that's so interesting because it makes you feel so different about the story and it makes you actually want to do something. And I think those emotions are very important because since this is an adult book and we don't need to talk about all the things, we know what's right and wrong, most people. But what it does is that we now know, because of reading the short story, what it feels like to let that happen and not do anything about it. So maybe when that happens in our lives, we will do something about it because we've already felt on those emotions and we won't be shocked by them or paralyzed by them because we know like the how uncomfortable and terrible that sort of ending can be. I don't know if that makes sense, but I wanted to use this story to talk about how I experienced the other stories and why I like them so much, even if they have an unsatisfying ending. Okay, I just finished the one that's called Underground. It's like a short story within a short story. So it's about this person who's a trucker and they go to a pub, I think, and they talk to this other guy that tells them a story, like a horror story about all these children going missing, and the ending is kind of like this ironic twist to the story. I quite enjoyed it, but like with the other ones, I'm not sure what the commentary is. I liked it. So this one's only 4 pages, so I'm just gonna read you the beginning and then I'm not gonna tell you any more about it. Tego made himself some scrambled eggs. When he sat down at the table and looked at the plate, he found himself unable to eat them. What's wrong? I asked him. His eyes lingered on the eggs. I'm worried, he said. I think I'm slowing down. And then it kind of escalates from there. I liked it. Not so many thoughts about it actually, but it's very short, you know? Oh my god. I never really realized how ridiculous his haircut was until I looked into the viewfinder and I have actually realized my dreams of becoming an egg. That's what the look is, literally smaller here. Egg person. What about the egg person? Let's ignore all this and ignore why I thought it was a good idea. I am going to review the next short story in this. It's called what? On the Step. It's about this couple who gets invited to dinner at this other couple and then they discover something there. And I finished it and I have so many questions. I'm not sure I understand it.
just like frustrating, anticipation and then disappointment, and I don't know why I like it.
Okay, the second to last short story in this is called The Great Effort, and for some reason it might be my favorite one thus far, and I think that comes quite surprising for someone who's read this and knows this story, because it's not a memorable one, it's not a weirdly surreal one, it doesn't have an open ending, but maybe out of all of these, it's probably the one that's most complete without being explicitly complete. So I think the first line is amazing. I'll read it to you. He and his father were a yellow animal, a single animal looking at itself in the mirror. What? I love that. Okay, that's a great first line. But it's not like magical realism at all. Basically what it talked about is not generational trauma, but like the fact that we have a relationship to our parents that we might create with our children. I mean, I don't have a kid, but with our children without realizing that we are doing it, and that healing the relationship that you have with your parents is also healing for the relationship you have with your children, and that healing one person in that chain can also heal all of them. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I really loved it. I love the message. At least that was what I got from it. Like, all of these are just, I'm pretty sure you don't get the same message as anyone else reading these. So that's very interesting. But I'll save the last one for tonight.
So I just finished the last one in A Mouthful of Birds. It's called The Heavy Suitcase of Benavides. And I'm gonna have to rethink which one's actually my favorite, because maybe this is my favorite. You know, I think what this one does really well, like, I can't tell you what it's about. Well, I can't tell you what it's about. It's about this man who kills his wife. They've been married for 29 years. He kills his wife and he freaks out. He puts her in a suitcase and he takes her to his psychiatrist or therapist. And things just like go in a direction like you can never guess. Like, amazing. And I think what I really liked about this one is that, you know how we use words to describe emotions, but sometimes we feel things that we can't explain with words. But then when a story uses words to explain those things that the words themselves cannot explain, that's magic. That's when like writing is at its peak. And I felt like the story really did that. I think you can analyze it. I think you can get some meaning out of it that's very simple. I think it has different meanings depending on who reads it. But for me, it was all about like what it made me feel, and I think majority of these stories are about how they make me feel, and that the fact that I can't describe what they make me feel means that they've done something more than just, I don't know. I really liked it. I think I will give it 4 stars because there is a few stories in here, like the F word is used more than I think it should and is necessary. And there was some that I really didn't connect with, but this was just brilliant and I highly recommend it. It was great. Fantastic. Samantha Schweblin is definitely a new favorite author. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's been different than my usual content and I know it's a bit weird. I will leave a comment down below and then there will be 2 branch comments under that one. I'll respond to my own comment with a yay or nay. And you can like the one that you agree with, as in if you think this is a good concept and you want me to continue with these and read more short stories, then click yay, and if not, click nay, and I won't see who it is. It's just anonymous when you like something, so do that. That would really help me out, because the whole reason why I'm doing like this video in the first place is because I think it's impossible to review short story collections in a wrap-up, even in a review, you know, because it's so many stories in one that reviewing it as one book, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's why I'm doing these videos, so that I can always refer to this if someone asks me about a short story collection. I hope that makes sense. I really enjoyed it. I've been filming 5 videos at the same time this month and my brain is like sort of exploding trying to keep the footage apart from each other. So peace out.